I remember the white light above me, so sterile, so quiet. I thought I was dreaming. The scent of antiseptic lingered in the air like a warning, sharp and unforgiving. I blinked slowly, my body aching as if it had been emptied and rearranged. The last thing I remembered was sitting in the hospital waiting room, jittery from the cold, clutching the sleeve of my hoodie like it was an anchor. "It's just routine blood work," the nurse had said, smiling warmly. "Nothing to worry about." She had a soft voice, the kind that made you believe her. So I nodded, followed her into the back, and that was the last clear thing I remembered before waking up in a dim recovery room with a dress clinging to my body like a second skin. At first, I thought it was a mistake. The fabric was a pale blue, soft, delicate, and unmistakably not mine. It was snug at the waist and loose at the shoulders, like someone had picked it out for a different version of me. I tried to sit up, but the dizziness pulled me back down. My fingers trembled as I reached for the call button, but it wasn't there. The room was silent. No machines beeping. No footsteps in the hallway. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the pounding of my heart. Then the curtain pulled back, and she walked in. Not a nurse. Not a doctor. My mother. Except she wasn't frantic. She wasn't even surprised. She looked resolved. Her eyes were tired, swollen from crying, but she didn't say a word. She simply stepped closer and sat on the edge of the bed like she was afraid I'd run. "What did you do to me?" I whispered, my voice raw. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just a deep inhale, a look toward the ceiling, and then finally, "You've been struggling. You've been hurting. You may not remember all of it now, but this is what you asked for." I shook my head, panic rising.
No.
I didn't. I never wanted this.
But she didn't argue.
Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded letter. My name was scribbled on the front, my full name, Leon Samuel Hart. She placed it in my lap. "You wrote this 2 months ago, after everything that happened." I stared at the envelope like it might explode. That was when the memories started trickling back like water through cracks in a dam. The crying, the screaming, the hospital visits, the counselor who said I had something buried too deep to face, the nights I'd lie awake wishing I could just be someone else.
Just for a day. Just to breathe.
But I never imagined this. I tore open the letter, hands shaking. The handwriting was mine. Uneven.
Sloppy.
But every word hit like a punch to the chest. "If something happens and I try to deny it later, please remind me. I want to feel what it's like to stop pretending. Just once. Even if I forget again." I read the letter 5 times.
10.
The tears came slowly at first, then all at once. "I didn't think you'd go through with it," I whispered, my voice cracking. Mom reached for my hand. "I didn't know what else to do. You were slipping away. I wanted to give you a chance to remember who you really are." I pulled my hand away. The betrayal stung. But somewhere beneath the fury, there was something else. A flicker of something I didn't understand yet. When I stood and looked at myself in the mirror, I expected revulsion. But what I felt was worse confusion. Because the reflection wasn't foreign. It wasn't a stranger. It was familiar. I didn't go home for a week. They kept me in observation psych evaluation, they said. But I wasn't crazy. I knew what was real. I just didn't know who I was in it anymore. I met someone there. A volunteer.
His name was Eli.
He was tall, quiet, wore beat-up sneakers, and carried a copy of the bell jar in his jacket pocket. He never asked why I was there. Instead, he brought me coffee and talked about clouds, poems, and his grandmother's blueberry muffins. He was kind, and he never looked at me like I was broken. One afternoon, I finally asked, "Do you think people can forget themselves completely?" He paused, then shrugged. "I think sometimes we don't forget, we just bury parts too deep to hear." I asked him why he volunteered at a place like this. He smiled. "Because once, I needed someone to sit with me. And someone did."
His words stuck with me, haunted me.
When I was released, the dress was gone, replaced with a pair of jeans and a hoodie that didn't quite fit anymore. Everything felt looser. My skin, my mind, the line between what I wanted and what I feared. At home, things were quiet.
My dad couldn't look me in the eye.
My sister avoided the topic completely. But my mom, she cooked more, talked less, kept leaving catalogs on my bed, women's fashion, cosmetics, hairstyle guides. It infuriated me. Until one night I broke. I didn't ask to be a girl. I screamed, throwing the catalogs into the hallway. She didn't flinch. She just stood there, arms crossed, eyes brimming. You didn't ask to be a boy either. Silence. I think that was the first time it really hit me. That maybe this wasn't about choosing sides. That maybe I wasn't supposed to pick one. Maybe I was just trying to find me. The school didn't go easy on me. Rumors spread fast. The boy who vanished and came back quiet, thinner, softer. The names came like knives: freak, tranny, liar. But the worst was when someone taped a photo to my locker. It was me, in the dress. Taken without me knowing. Probably the day I walked out of the hospital. Written across the top, "Guess who's playing pretend now?" I couldn't breathe. I ran to the bathroom and locked the stall, choking on rage and humiliation. That was when the door creaked. "Eli?" His voice was low, gentle. I didn't answer. He sat outside the stall. "You okay?"
No.
A beat passed. Then he said, "I saw the photo." I tore the rest down. "Why do you care?" I snapped. "I don't even know who I am." He paused, then said something I never expected. "You're the only person I've met who makes me feel like I'm not the only one hiding." I opened the door. His eyes were wet. "I'm gay," he said. "And I haven't told anyone. Not even my parents. But when I saw you walk into that school, even after everything, I saw someone braver than I've ever been." That night, we didn't kiss.
We didn't hold hands.
We just sat. Two souls unsure of their shape, breathing the same broken air. Weeks passed. I started seeing a therapist.
Not because someone told me to.
Because I needed it. She didn't push labels. She let me talk. I told her about the dress. About the photo. About the day I didn't want to wake up. And the day I did, and felt something I'd never felt before. Freedom. Tiny, terrifying freedom. One day she asked, "Have you thought about a name?" I hadn't. Until I did. Lena. It felt like mine. Like it had always been.
I didn't tell my dad right away.
When I finally did, he stood up from the dinner table and walked out. He didn't come back for 3 days. When he did, he looked older. Tired. He handed me a photo of my grandmother. She had Lena's eyes. He didn't say much. But he said, she was brave too. My sister surprised me the most. She handed me a makeup kit. "I suck at this stuff," she said, "but I figured you should try it before I do." And just like that, she became my first ally. Eli and I grew closer. We weren't a couple. Not really. But he held my hand under the stars once and said, "You remind me that I'm real." I think I needed to hear that more than he did. The last time I wore that dress, I didn't cry. I stood in front of the mirror, running my fingers along the seams. And I whispered, "Thank you." Not because it was pretty, but because it forced me to meet myself. And I finally liked who I saw. It had been months since the hospital, since the dress, since I woke up and realized nothing would ever be the same. But life didn't slow down to give me space. School still happened. People still stared. Time kept moving, whether I was ready or not. And then one day, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text. An envelope, pale yellow, with my name written in cursive. Just Lena. It was from the hospital. The same place where it all started. Inside was a note and signed. "You still don't remember everything, but you deserve to. Come back. Ask for room 208. I stared at the letter for an hour. A part of me wanted to burn it, but another part, the quieter part that had started learning how to breathe again, couldn't let go of the questions. Because the truth is, I never really knew what happened that day. I believed my mother. I believed the letter I wrote to myself. But something about it all felt incomplete.
So I went back.
Not because I was brave, but because I needed peace. The hospital looked the same. Too white. Too clean. I walked through the lobby with my hoodie pulled over my head, and asked the receptionist for room 208. She didn't question it, just pointed. The elevator creaked all the way up. Room 208 was at the end of the hall, tucked between a supply closet and a quiet zone. I knocked, but no one answered. So I opened the door. The room wasn't like the others. It was warmer, lived in. There was a plant in the corner, a small couch, and behind a desk, sorting through papers, sat a man in his late 40s with graying hair and eyes that felt familiar. "You came," he said softly, as if he'd been expecting me. I hesitated. "Do I know you?" He gestured to the chair across from him.
Not yet.
"But I know you." I didn't move. He continued. "I'm Dr. Ellery. I used to work in the trauma support unit. I was there the day you arrived. I handled your intake and the intervention." My pulse quickened. "Intervention?" He nodded. "You don't remember it because, well, your mind did what it needed to survive. Suppressed the trauma." I sank into the chair. My throat tightened. "Tell me everything." He took a breath, then began. "You were brought in unconscious. Attempted overdose. Your mother found you in the bathroom." My stomach turned. I couldn't speak. "She didn't know what pushed you to that point. But your journal did. The one she found weeks later, hidden in the vent behind your dresser." I swallowed hard. Dr. Ellery leaned forward. It was filled with letters. Letters from someone named Lena. Desperate, aching, terrified letters. She thought they were fictional, but we knew better. "I don't remember writing them," I whispered. "Because you weren't ready to remember. That's why your mother asked us to try something unconventional. We didn't force you into anything. In fact, you asked for the trial." I looked up confused. He opened a drawer and slid a file toward me. Inside was a signed document. My signature. My handwriting. "Experimental Gender Identity Integration Program Emergency. Consent Approval. You were one of only 3 people to ever try it," he said. "It's not medical. Not hormonal. Just psychological. We created a space where you could wake up as her. Feel what she feels. Without filters. Without denial." I couldn't stop shaking. I thought I was tricked. "No, Lena. You were saved." I stared down at the file, my name written across the top. Not Leon. Just Lena. "Why did you send the letter now?" I asked. "Because I wanted you to know that this wasn't about turning you into someone else. It was about letting you meet her. The part you spent your whole life silencing." Silence hung in the air. "And if you're ready, there's someone else who wants to talk to you." He stood and walked to the side door. I stood too, legs weak. My hands trembled. And then it opened, and Eli stepped in. But something was different. He looked pale, nervous. I blinked. Why are you here?" He looked at me, eyes wet. "Because I wasn't just a volunteer, Lena. I was part of the trial too." My breath caught. He took a step closer. "That first day we met wasn't real. It was part of the simulation. You just didn't know. But it felt real, didn't it?" I nodded slowly, heart pounding. "I volunteered because I saw you, and something in me cracked open. I wasn't supposed to tell you. But when you left, I couldn't stop thinking about you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "You're saying the person I trusted most, the person who made me feel seen, wasn't real?"
No.
"I'm saying I was real. Every word. Every feeling. I just didn't know I'd fall for you too." And then he stepped closer. "I left the program after you did. I went back to my life. But nothing felt right. So I asked Dr. Ellery to contact you. Because I had to know if what we had was more than part of a trial." I couldn't speak. He gently took my hand. "It's not about the program anymore, Lena. It's about us. About what's real now." And in that moment, everything, every pain, every whisper, every shattered piece came into focus. This wasn't a story about being tricked. It was a story about being found. About finding her, the girl inside me, and realizing she was strong enough to survive the truth. And love. And herself. 1 year later, I stood in front of the classroom.
My voice didn't shake this time.
My name tag said Lena Hart, and nobody questioned it. I was invited to speak to students about mental health and identity. And at the back of the room, Sitting quietly with that same tattered copy of the bell jar was Eli. After the talk, a student came up to me quiet, nervous. She looked around, then whispered, "How did you know that you were her?" I smiled. Because one day, I stopped surviving and started listening. She blinked. To what? To the girl inside me, I said. And she whispered, finally. I walked past the hospital again. Just for a moment. And, for the first time in forever, I didn't flinch. The girl in the dress wasn't a ghost anymore. She was me. And she wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the truth. Not of love. Not of living. Just ready. Winter came quietly. Snow blanketed the streets like someone was trying to soften the world. I used to hate this season. The cold made me feel brittle, exposed, like one wrong move would make me shatter. But this year was different. This year I had a name that fit. A mirror I didn't flinch from. And someone who held my hand without flinching either. Eli and I weren't perfect. We still fumbled through silences. Still danced around fears we couldn't name. But he saw me even when I couldn't, and that was enough. Until the day his past caught up with us. It happened the night we went to his apartment for the first time. He'd avoided it for weeks, always offering to come to mine, to meet at cafes, to walk in the park. But finally, he said, "There's something you need to see." We took the train. His hands were unusually tense in mine, fingers twitching, eyes unfocused. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah. Just there's something I haven't told you." My stomach dropped. He looked at me, searching my face. "You have to promise not to leave when you find out." I couldn't answer that. I didn't know what he meant. When we arrived, the apartment was silent. Too clean. Too cold. He unlocked the door with shaking hands. Inside, it looked like no one lived there. No pictures. No clothes out. Just furniture and silence. He walked over to a cabinet and opened it. Slowly, carefully. And pulled out a dress. Not just any dress. The dress. The one I woke up in at the hospital. My breath caught. "What is that doing here?" He looked down, ashamed. "Because it wasn't supposed to be you who wore it." I blinked. "What?" I was the original subject. For the trial. The dress was part of my recovery. But I couldn't go through with it. I dropped out the night before. Silence. He continued. "They kept the materials ready in case someone else needed them. And when your mother called, they used it. They never told me it was you until the day I saw you in recovery." I stared at him, frozen. "So you knew?" He nodded, eyes brimming. I didn't know what to do. You looked so lost. And it was like fate had handed me a second chance to make something right. I backed away. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie," he said quickly. "I just didn't know how to tell the truth without losing you." I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller with every second. "This wasn't just some emotional coincidence," I said, voice shaking. "You saw me as a replacement. A way to redeem yourself." "No," he said, stepping forward. "I saw you as you. I fell for you because you were strong. Because you didn't run. Because you walked through the fire I couldn't face." I wanted to believe him. But the dress was there like a ghost we both carried. I left without saying goodbye. And for the first time in months, I felt alone again. The days after were a blur. I went quiet at home. Stopped replying to messages. Stopped looking in the mirror. Until one afternoon, I came home to find my father sitting at the kitchen table, staring at an old photo album. He looked up slowly. "You okay?" I didn't answer. He nodded like he understood anyway. Then he pushed the album toward me. I opened it cautiously. Inside were black and white photos. A girl in her teens, smiling, standing beside an old car. "She looks like you," I whispered. "That's because she was me," he said quietly. My heart stopped. I looked at him, really looked, and saw it. The way his eyes had always averted when I wore something feminine. Not with disgust, but with recognition. "I was your age," he said, "when I realized I didn't want to be the man my father wanted." I couldn't breathe. I buried her. Deep. Got married. Raised a family. Tried to be what I was told. But when your mom told me about you, I couldn't even look at you. Why? I choked. Because I saw her. The girl I never had the courage to be. And it scared the hell out of me.
The tears came.
From both of us. I'm sorry, he whispered. For not being what you needed. For not showing you it's okay. I reached for his hand. For the first time in my life, we saw each other not as father and daughter, but as two people trying to come home to themselves. A week passed before Eli messaged me. Just 3 words. I still see you. I stared at them for hours. Then I messaged back. Then come find me. We met on the same bench where he first held my hand. He didn't speak right away. Neither did I. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. It was a note. Torn, faded. It said, "If I ever disappear, tell her she's still in there. Tell her she's brave." Who wrote this? I asked.
My sister, he said.
She didn't make it. She was like us. But the world was too heavy. I joined the trial after her, hoping I'd understand her better, hoping I'd feel what she felt. I touched the paper like it might break. She would have been proud of you. He smiled, through tears. And she would have loved you. This time, we kissed. Not because it fixed everything, but because we were tired of being afraid. I stood on a small stage. A community center event for LGBTQ youth. My voice didn't shake this time. My name is Lena, I said. I didn't wake up this way. I chose to remember her. And even when it hurt, I kept choosing her. In the crowd, Eli stood beside my father. Both proud. Both still healing. I closed my speech with the words I'd once written in my journal. Whoever told you you had to choose one version of yourself lied. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to stop apologizing for being you. The speech went viral. Someone had recorded it and uploaded it without me knowing. Within days, the comments poured in, most of them supportive, some curious, a few cruel. But the damage or the gift had already been done. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was seen. And that was both beautiful and terrifying. 2 weeks after the video blew up, I received an invitation. It came from the school district and offered to join a youth advisory panel on gender inclusion. It should have been an easy yes. But along with it came another letter, slid into my locker anonymously. Keep talking, and we'll remind everyone who you really are. There was no signature, no return address. But I knew exactly where it came from, because people like me weren't supposed to be loud. We were supposed to survive quietly. I crumpled the note, shoved it in my pocket, and walked to the front office. But just as I reached the door, someone stopped me. A girl. Petite. Nervous. Chewing the sleeve of her sweater. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I saw who left it." I blinked. "What?" She looked around, then leaned in. "I won't say who. But they're scared. You scare them. Because you made it out." I stared at her. "And you?" She swallowed. "I'm still in it." That's when I noticed the binder beneath her hoodie. The way she stood, like she was trying to disappear. She was like me. She was me 6 months ago. "What's your name?" I asked. She looked around, then said quietly, "Jay." I smiled. "Well, Jay, let's get you out of the dark." That day changed everything. Jay became my shadow. Not in a clingy way, in a watchful way. She'd follow me after school, ask questions in whispers, stare at the ground when people passed too close. But she listened. And slowly, she began to speak. About how her parents thought being non-binary was just a TikTok phase. About how her older brother would call her slurs at dinner. About the one teacher who kept using the wrong name on purpose. It made my stomach twist. One night, she asked, "How did you know who you were?" I thought for a moment. I didn't. I just knew who I wasn't. And every time I took off the mask, I could breathe again. She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. I want that too. But change always invites resistance. A week later, Jay was cornered in the locker room. Someone stuffed a note in her backpack. "Lena 2.0?
Sit down.
This world already has enough freaks." She ran out of school, crying. And I did what I swore I never would. I confronted the principal. "We need to talk," I said, slamming the paper down on her desk. She looked up, startled. "Lena, I'm aware of the issue, but we're handling it."
No.
"You're not. You're ignoring it.
Just like you ignored me.
Just like you ignore everyone like Jay." Her jaw tightened. "We have policies. Procedures." I leaned in. "And we have kids. Hurting. Hiding. Dying." The silence that followed was loud. That night, I got a call from the advisory board. The invitation was being withdrawn. "Too much attention," they said. "Too divisive. We appreciate your story, but perhaps it's best if you don't represent us publicly right now." I hung up without saying a word. Then I cried. Not for myself. For every kid who would never get the mic, never get the platform, never get to say their name out loud. I made my decision the next morning. I walked into the principal's office with Jay by my side and handed her a typed letter. "I'm organizing a walkout," I said calmly. She went pale. "That's against school policy." "Exactly." Jay slid a folder onto the desk. Inside were copies of every hateful message she'd received. Dated. Time-stamped. "This is what you've been ignoring," she whispered. I looked the principal in the eyes. "If you try to stop us, we'll take this public." The walkout happened on a Tuesday. Eli stood beside me, holding my hand. My father watched from across the street, arms crossed, eyes glassy. Jay led the march. We didn't scream. We stood. Quiet. Defiant. Visible. And slowly others joined. Kids who'd never spoken up before.
Teachers.
Even a janitor with a rainbow pin beneath his vest.
The world didn't change that day.
But we did. That night, I got a message. Unknown number. Just 5 words. "She'd be proud of you." Attached was a photo of a girl standing in the snow, wearing the same dress I once woke up in. She looked like me, because it was me. But this time, the image wasn't haunting. It was whole. It was the moment the mask broke forever. Jay stood on the same stage I once did. Her voice shook. Her hands trembled. But she said the words anyway. "I'm not brave because I'm loud. I'm brave because I stayed." The crowd rose. And I stood beside her. Because I knew this was just the beginning.